you ever seen someone so obsessed with control, they start cleaning things that don't even belong to them? That's how this all started, with Patricia, our neighborhood's self-proclaimed Ho Queen, armed with a power washer and a sense of entitlement, big enough to flood the whole street. It was a Saturday morning, sun blazing over our quiet cul-de-sac. I had just finished repainting the front wall of my house. A clean, slate gray finish that took me the entire week to perfect. Fresh paint, perfect edges, not a single streak. I was proud. It was my weekend project. A little reward to myself after a long work stretch. Then came the hiss of a power washer. Loud. Relentless. I stepped outside with my coffee, only to see Patricia, leaning over the hedge like a hawk, blasting my freshly painted wall. Water and paint mixed into a sad gray soup that ran down the driveway. My jaw dropped. "Patricia, what the hell are you doing?" I shouted. She looked at me like I was the intruder. "You're welcome," she said, smiling like she'd just saved the neighborhood. "There was mildew on your wall. I couldn't just stand by and let property values drop." I walked closer, trying to process what I was seeing. The paint was literally peeling off under her spray. "That's fresh paint, Patricia." "I finished it yesterday," she scoffed. "Then you should have used HOA-approved colors. Gray isn't on the list." That's when it hit me. She wasn't trying to help. She was punishing me. A few weeks back, I had called her out for trespassing on someone else's yard with her measuring tape, checking fence heights. I guess this was payback. "Turn it off now," I said, stepping forward. But she ignored me and cranked up the pressure, aiming at the corner where I'd just stenciled our house number. The blast ripped through the fresh coat, leaving streaks like claw marks. When I reached for the power cord, she yanked it back. "Touch this, and I'll report you for aggression against an HOA officer," she snapped. That was it. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Patricia, you're vandalizing my property." "Say that again for the camera." She froze. Her smirk faltered, but only for a second. "You're going to regret this," she said, dropping the hose. "We'll see what the board says." I didn't realize then that this was just the opening act of a much bigger mess, one that would end with the HOA, board itself turning against her. By Monday morning, Patricia had already spun her version of events. 3 emails went out to the entire HOA mailing list. Subject line: violation report, unauthorized paint and hostile behavior. I opened one, and there it was in bold. Resident at 124 Maple. Grove painted their exterior wall without prior approval, using a non-compliant color. When approached for community maintenance, resident became aggressive and threatening. Aggressive? Threatening. She made it sound like I was wielding a chainsaw instead of a cup of coffee. My phone buzzed with texts from neighbors, some sympathetic, others cautious. Patricia had power, not because she was right, but because everyone was too tired to deal with her. That evening, I saw her marching around the cul-de-sac with a clipboard, snapping photos of violations, a kid's skateboard on a porch, a flagpole, a trash bin left out 5 minutes too long. Her mission wasn't about community. It was about control. I stayed quiet for the moment, but I had evidence. That video of her blasting my wall wasn't just proof, it was gold. The next day, I attended the HOA meeting. Patricia sat at the head of the folding table like a judge at a sentencing. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to address a matter of non-compliance regarding property number 124. She gestured toward me. "Mr. Brooks painted his exterior wall in unapproved color and refused remediation when I tried to correct it." Murmurs filled the room. I stood up. "Remediation? Patricia, you power-washed fresh paint off my property without permission." A board member frowned. "Is that true?" Patricia crossed her arms. "It's his word against mine." That's when I played the video. The room went silent except for the hiss of her power washer, echoing through the phone speaker. Her voice came through crystal clear. "You should have used HOA-approved colors." The silence that followed was delicious. Even the board's president, usually her biggest ally, looked unimpressed. Patricia, you entered his property without authorization? I was maintaining community standards. She barked. By destroying paint? I countered. Her face flushed. That's not how this looks. Oh, it's exactly how it looks, said another board member. And I think we'll be discussing your behavior next meeting. I could see her jaw tighten as she gathered her things. This isn't over, she hissed on her way out. She was right. It wasn't. Patricia wasn't the type to back down. She was about to make things personal. The next morning, I woke up to a letter taped to my front door. It was an official-looking document stamped with the HOA logo, but something about it felt off. The font was crooked, the seal was faded, and the signature looked like a bad forgery of the board president's name. The letter stated, "You are hereby fined $500 for damage to shared property and non-compliance with HOA maintenance policy. Failure to pay within 7 days will result in a lien. Shared property? My wall?" I almost laughed. Patricia had gone rogue. I drove to the HOA office and handed the letter to the actual board president. Greg. He frowned immediately. This didn't come from us. Patricia doesn't have authorization to issue fines on her own. That was all I needed to hear. Greg promised to investigate, but I knew Patricia wouldn't stop there. That afternoon, I noticed my garbage bins had been moved out of sight. Then my mailbox flag disappeared. Petty things, but all perfectly in her style. Death by 1,000 HOA cuts. That evening, as I walked the dog, I saw Patricia crouched by my fence, muttering to another board member's wife. When she spotted me, she smiled sweetly. Just inspecting your perimeter for overgrowth. You wouldn't want a citation. I took a step closer. You're pushing it, Patricia. Oh, please, she scoffed. You should be thanking me. I saved your wall from mildew, and now your property's under review for multiple violations. Maybe next time you'll learn to cooperate. I smiled slowly. Funny thing, you might want to check your email later. Her smirk faltered just a bit. That night I sent Greg and the entire board my video again, this time attached to a formal complaint. I also included the forged letter. The HOA's lawyer responded within an hour, thanking me for bringing it forward. Apparently, Patricia had been warned twice before for overstepping her authority. The next day, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Someone leaked that the board had suspended Patricia pending review. Her reaction? A storm. She stormed over to my driveway that evening, red-faced and trembling. You humiliated me, she yelled. You think this is over? I was this neighborhood. I stayed calm. No, Patricia. You were the problem. Her eyes narrowed. Then I'll show you what happens when people think they're above the rules. That threat wasn't empty. What she did next nearly got her arrested and finally exposed everything she'd been hiding. 2 nights later, the neighborhood group chat lit up. Someone reported a woman with a power washer at 2 a.m. I already knew who it was before I even checked the footage. Patricia, in her pink robe and rubber boots, was back at it, blasting away at my wall again like some kind of suburban vigilante. But this time I was ready. I had installed motion sensors and a camera after our last run-in. The second she stepped onto my property, lights flooded the driveway, and the camera started recording in full HD. Caught you again, Patricia, I called out from my porch, phone in hand. She jumped, turned, and yelled, You can't prove anything! This wall violates HOA code. It's been approved, I said, holding up the printed confirmation from the HOA board. Greg sent it last night. Guess you didn't get the memo. You're suspended. Her expression twisted. I am the HOA, she shouted, and tried to spray the paper right out of my hand. That was the last straw. I dialed 911. When the cops arrived, she was still ranting about property values and mildew conspiracies. One officer, trying not to laugh, asked, Ma'am, why are you washing his wall at 2 a.m? She crossed her arms defiantly. Because no one else will enforce the rules. The officer looked at me. You want to press charges? I nodded. Trespassing and property damage. They escorted her off my driveway, still shouting about bylaws and color charts. The neighborhood gathered on their lawns, whispering. It was surreal, like watching the fall of a tiny tyrant. The next HOA meeting was packed. Patricia showed up, pale and tight-lipped, with her lawyer in tow. Greg stood at the podium, clearing his throat. After reviewing the evidence, video, forged letter, and multiple instances of unauthorized enforcement, the board has voted unanimously to remove Patricia Hendris from her position effective immediately. The room erupted. Some clapped, some sighed in relief. Patricia just sat there, trembling. "You'll regret this," she muttered, before storming out for the last time. A week later, I repainted my wall. Same gray, smoother than before. This time, the board even sent a note thanking me for improving the neighborhood aesthetic. Every now and then, I still see Patricia's old power washer sitting by the community dumpster. Silent, useless, forgotten. And every time I pass that wall, I can't help but smile. Because sometimes the best revenge is just letting the paint dry and watching the problem wash itself away. Smash that like button if you've ever had a neighbor like this, and subscribe for more crazy Karen tales every week.